Wake up, Juju. Time to go to work.
All right, can we talk about
Wake up, I get it, I get it, Wake up, I get it, I go with everyone saying I'm up next. It's not my fault that the vocals are gold, that making the haters so upset. My life is a movie, the way that I roll. They saying I'm goofy, but baby, you know I'm making everybody obsessed. Cause we the best, how we get wrecked, and I know we gonna get bread, we gonna get bread. We gonna get bread, we gonna get bread. We gonna get bread, we gonna get bread.
Guys, welcome to another episode of Get Wrecked with Straw Hat Goofy. I'm here with someone very special to me, even though he never knew it until maybe about a month ago. Sean Chandler from Sean Talks, man. How are you doing, man?
I am doing good. I am so overstimulated because I'm from small town Texas, quite literally where they shot the TV show Friday Night Lights.
Okay,
and
great TV show,
right? But Texas. There's a pace of life in Texas, and then LA. It is so much crazier. We were just talking about that before we started recording, but GPS said it was 20 minutes to get over here. We're like, let's add 20 minutes on top of that. Then it took 40 minutes to get here, and we're driving by the Paramount building. I'm like, whoa, we are not in Texas anymore. So my brain is freaking out about everything.
Welcome to LA, man. Like, especially you came on a rainy day too, on the rare rainy days. And as you've probably seen the news, we've needed it desperately. But
we were supposed to be doing this a few weeks back,
and that's what kind of got in the way of it, the LA fires. And so we, like a lot of things during that time, we had to push that forward, do a lot of community efforts. Like I'm actually going to be doing like a multi-con pretty soon, and we're going to be doing like a fire aid, like raising money for that. So really excited about that. But I'm really glad that we're sitting here talking now on a rainy day. So I think that's symbolism for everything's looking up and up for us right now. So you're here for the Critics' Choice Awards, man.
I am.
Dude, are you excited? Like I've never been. I'm jealous as hell.
There's so many different things about all of this that it's like, how is this my life? Like, in my mind, starting my movie critic journey in some regards back in like 1998, in other regards back in 2016, getting to go to Critics' Choice, being invited to it is kind of the culmination of like validation of this path that I've been on, and that my little hobby is like, wait, I'm a real deal. Like, last night we're in the hotel room and we're watching Amazing Spider-Man 2. During the commercial break, they're advertising for Critics' Choice. It's like, we're gonna be at that.
You made
like,
it.
This is my job. Like, I've made it.
If that's not the indicator of you made it as a critic, I don't know what else is.
And it's so easy to have like imposter syndrome in so much of this. And you have those moments of like, especially with comment sections and people pushing back, you don't like enough serious movies, you do that. And then
well, I feel like if we're critics on the internet, we deal with more of the comics than say the old guard of critics. I mean, I want to say old guard, but they're also still around, the critics who write for publications and things like that. It's I envy them so much because they just get to write and then throw it out there and just probably not worry about it. Who knows if they read their comments, but you put things out on the internet, which putting your opinion out on the internet is the biggest oxymoron that I think I could think of, because then you got to deal with the comments and like put your opinions meet other opinions, and then people start attacking you personally. But the fact that you have been doing this for a while, you do it very well, by the way.
Thank you.
Now you're at the Critics' Choice Awards as a critic, a culmination of what you've been doing. I can only imagine, dude, like how much validation you feel that also goes with feeling like an imposter.
Right.
Another oxymoron.
Well, I mean, even in the context right now, the fact that you were excited to talk to me is like, you reached out to message, you're like, how is this a real day in my life? And I'm like, turning to my wife, like, Straw Goofy, he just sent me a DM. And she's like, what? What's
Don't
that?
do that. Don't do that. Like, cause like I feel like we're gonna just be gushing about each other for like the next like hour or so, because I've been watching you for so long, dude. Like even before, cause I started a YouTube channel back in 2016. Nobody really knows this, but I remember it was like right before my daughter was born. I was like, I was watching your video. I was watching Dan Murrow. I was watching like Jeremy Johns and Chris Stuckman, and I was just like, yo, I want to like get into this. I want to be a part of this. And then my daughter was born and I put it on the back burner. And so, daughter was born, got myself like a little grown-up job doing advertising, as we talked about. And then, TikTok just kind of fell in my lap while I was working in advertising. And so, I'm just kind of like doing my thing, and like I just want to make videos and like talk about the things that I love. And like I was just scrolling on my Instagram one day a couple months ago, and I saw that you were following me, and I was like, excuse me? I've been like in love with your content so much. I love your lists. I love your opinions. I love your reviews. Like I just like am obsessed with the way you talk about movies, because it's so hard to talk about film in a non-film broy way, in a non-pretentious way, in a way that exudes joy for film, while also being critical but not being a dick about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like people try to equate criticism with being an ass.
Yes.
When, you know, you're right. And like, whenever
like, why are you talking about? It seems like you don't even like movies. Like, what are you doing?
Right. And it's like, you wouldn't believe how many times, I would review a movie and I would, come with my criticisms and, but I'll say them in a way that's just kind of, it didn't work for me,
Right.
And like, that doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean like it's the best movie ever. It just didn't work for me. And people will either just say, why do you love this movie so much? Or why do you hate this movie so much? And it's like, we can add nuance and still have joy for the things that are not the best things ever, right? And that's the tightrope that I feel like we have to walk whenever, because our faces are in front of the reviews, which means we get a lot of the blame for that. So it's very interesting, the line of work that we are in. And like, I just want to say thank you, man, because you and all those other names that I mentioned are the things that got me into this content creation game.
Right.
So to hear you talking about like, oh, Straw Hat Goofy did this, I'm just like, no, you came and said yes to being on here. So I really appreciate that, dude.
That's what's so fascinating about the world of internet fame.
Yeah.
Is that it is, we all have different people that we idolize or that we watch. And, you list off every single person you listed off were the people I was watching before I started.
Great guys.
On Screen Junkies and, of course, James John Stuckman. And then now there are people that I just kind of know.
Yeah.
Which is in and of itself a little bit surreal. And like in particular, like John Flickinger, like I'm just good friends with him. I've done Comic Cons with him and stuff like that. And it's an interesting conversion in your brain from the person I was watching to the person that I'm just buddies with.
Yeah.
And I still haven't gotten over it yet.
Yeah, it really like puts everything into perspective for you, because I remember one of the big ones that I used to watch all the time, and I think I first saw him on Screen Junkies Movie Fights, which I really want to bring back, dude. I really it was my dream to be on Movie Fights one day.
Mine too.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I really want to bring it back.
Sounds like we have a lot of overlap.
Let's like one day like make this happen, because like I've been dying to do a Movie Fights. I kind of did a miniature version of Movie Fights, like a testing ground one at VidCon last year, and it was a lot of fun. And I was like, I'm kind of addicted to this thing now, so I'm definitely gonna make this happen again.
I think most of the people in our kind of era that came about, that's what we were watching in 2015, and we're like, great. We want that again.
Yes, so we're gonna bring it back. Like, I'm gonna bring it back. I will make it my personal mission in 2025 to bring it back. But Coy Jandreau, in that, like, he is such like a master at the speed round during Movie Fights. And I remember going to a screening. It was one of my first screenings that I went to for The Suicide Squad. And I remember after seeing the movie, I remember seeing, mind you, I don't think I've ever seen Coy's whole body before. Yeah. He's always sitting down. It's always like from like the big chest up. Yeah. But I remember seeing this really buff individual like walking into the theater, just his back, right? Felt like that scene in How I Met Your Mother where Ted sees like the mother's foot in the thing for the first time. But I saw him and I go, did I? No, that couldn't have been. It's probably nothing. And I'm talking to my friends. We're sitting outside the theater, and then I get a tap on the shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Coy. Yeah. And he looks at me and says, "People have told me that we should meet." And I said, "Wait a minute!" First thing he's ever said to me, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're Coy Jandreau." And he was like, "And you're Straw Hat Goofy." And he was talking about how he watched me for a long time. I talked about how I watched him for a long time, and now he's like literally one of my best friends in the world. Like, we've quite literally traveled the world together. I was there when he met his now fiance, Anya, who's like amazing. And like trying to wrap my brain around this kind of life that we're in, just making a living by talking about movies, which again, you described it as a hobby. I still see it as like a hobby. Right. And, you know, we get paid to like do promos. We get paid to like go places and see things. And it's just like, it's amazing. So again, big thank you to you, man. Like, I'm really excited to pick your brain. Plus, like, there's some movie news that came out. We have a reaction for you because you hadn't seen it yet. We'll get to that right after I want to ask you the big question, because the reason why I start this podcast is that I like to connect with people about movies, and I like to get to know who they are, like just kind of like the building blocks of who they are. And I feel like movies connects us in that way. It builds us up in that way. So a question I have for you is, what was that movie or movies that was the thing that changed your brain chemistry, right? Something that kind of like made who Sean is.
I don't know if it's any one movie,
Right.
but I think it's summer 1989.
Okay.
Where Batman 89 comes out. Mm-hmm. And it was Batmania, and that like is kind of the start of my childhood memories in a lot of certain senses.
Right.
So I had all the toys. Is the first time like I was excited for a movie. I still have the whole notebook of collected cards for it and
Nice.
Batman Returns.
Okay.
And that same summer, so I was born in San Jose and then moved to Texas when I was 7 and been in Texas ever since. Mm-hmm. But that summer we drove back from Texas to California and stopped in middle of nowhere theater halfway between Texas and San Jose. Mm-hmm. This theater has one screen. It has a balcony, one screen, and if they didn't sell 20 tickets, they wouldn't show the movie. And it was Star Trek V, which is infamously the worst Star Trek movie. Actually,
Wait, isn't that the one where he says, "What will God need with a spaceship"?
Yep.
Love it. Love it.
They're hunting down God, and then he goes, question, what does God need with the starship? Like, infamously the worst until a couple weeks ago when they put out a TV movie of Star Trek that is now the worst.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
It was saved as being, the worst one. It's the second worst now.
So now my childhood, this pivotal childhood movie for me is redeemed. But so it's just like that memory of like being in a theater and it was an event of like we're sitting there counting heads as people walk in, and it got to 20 and we got to watch. I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
The worst Star Trek movie for 35 years.
You don't know it at the time.
I didn't know how important this was.
History will tell, my friend.
But that kind of led to the 90s kind of just being in nerd culture with, my sister's 4 years older, and so she kind of drove a lot of that. But we didn't go to Comic Cons. We went to Star Trek conventions. Same exact thing, just more focused.
Yeah.
And went to movies all the time. And then when Jackie Chan transitioned over to the United States and Rumble in the Bronx, I was suddenly like, people can do that in movies. This is incredible.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'd been watching Van Damme movies, but that's a very specific style. He jumps up, does the splits.
Does the splits, try to stop himself from being like electrocuted. So the splits is what saves his life.
Yeah. And then you watch Jackie Chan, it's so fast and it's so fluid. It's like, this is
a lot of
mind.
personality with it too, like I think it was Rush Hour. I want to say it was Rush Hour with the vase, and like he's like trying to keep the vase up, and he's fighting these guys, and he has this face like and then it breaks and he goes shit, that was like one of the first action scenes where I was like, personality in action, cool.
Someone on the plane yesterday was watching Rush Hour 2. I was like, they're watching Rush Hour.
Yeah.
But I saw that and just like became obsessed and realized movies are bigger than what I know. Like, wait, he's been making movies overseas and there's decades worth of them.
Yep.
And so I became like obsessed with Hong Kong cinema in the late 90s. And so it was both Jackie Chan and then that kind of branched out the martial arts and then John Woo.
Right.
So I started a fan page, Jackie Chan fan page in 1998 where there's a picture of his body and you could click on the different body parts to find out in which movie he got injured.
That's cool.
It's cool. Also a little weird and creepy, but
but he's putting it out there. He
creativity.
Wants people to know. And honestly, that's kind of, that fits into what we love about movies is that, I feel like, and it may seem like a tangent, but stage and film production are two completely different things. Because the thing with stage is it's live, and let's be real, we're all waiting to see somebody make a mistake, and that's part of the fun of seeing like a live show. It's like it's in your face, it's happening, it's right now. Whereas like film, yes, it's pre-recorded, yes, it's been like rehearsed a million times, similar to stage, obviously, but it's the magic of this is happening. How did they accomplish that? How did no one get hurt when this happened? Turns out somebody did get hurt a lot, and Jackie Chan is able to like show that off, right? The amount of bones he break, I find like to be utterly fascinating to like get the shot. We see that with Tom Cruise all the time with like Mission Impossible, knowing that him jumping from one building to the other, he broke his foot and kept going. Like it's these type of things that make me fall in love with movies. And I feel like I just got transported to who you were like in the 90s as a child. Like I was born in 92. So like not to make you feel old or anything like that, but
in the space, I always feel like the dad of the space, and especially like on film Twitter, there's so many people at 25 years old. Like, and I'm like, wait, you were born after I graduated high school?
Listen, a lot of my friends are that way. Like one of my good friends, Matt Ramos, who's Soups, he's 23.
Yeah, right.
And I'm just, I met him when he was like 19, 20, and I'm just kind of like, yo, like, and all my friends overlap, and it's all around. So I feel like I'm the new father in this kind of like thing. But the crazy thing is, like, I just started, like, a lot of these people, like, some people call me Unk or the OG. I was, like, one of the first people to do, like, TikTok movie reviews because, you know, before the platform was just kind of like dancing videos and lip syncs and things like that. And, you know, I was just, like, always that kid who just loved talking about movies and I was going to, like, talk to anybody about it.
That's literally what my whole concept
You
is.
know? It's like,
I had interns in 2011. I worked at a church. I had 2 interns. And somehow, I don't even know how this came about, but I started lecturing them on John Williams scores. And I was like writing on the, do you know who did the score for Jaws? Like, Jaws came out 20 years before we were born. Like,
John who?
And so, like, you know, Harry Potter. Yeah, Harry, of course. You know, Jurassic Park. Yeah. John Williams.
I love doing that. You just list it off and make them go.
He did all of these. And it was like, wait a minute. We're supposed to be planning a youth group event. What is this moment of my life? And it was like, had that epiphany of like, maybe I do talk about movies too much.
Yep.
And I'm still good friends with both of them to this day. And like, whenever they want to know, like, can I take my kids to go see the Super Mario Brothers movie? Like, yes, you can, because those 2 interns got married and have a kid, so they asked me about movies, so it worked.
Your love for movies brought them together.
Yes,
and now I hope, like, on their honeymoon, they said, like, hey, remember when Sean used to tell us about John Williams?
We should watch that movie with the John Williams score.
Dude, honestly, like, I really hope that they walk down the aisle to, like, the Jurassic Park theme because of you. That would be really good. I had a very similar moment when I was working in advertising because even in my, you know, advertising job, people knew me as like the movie guy, which is kind of where that came from when I started this whole thing. But I remember we were doing a Google ad, and Google did a partnership with it was like the Google Pixel 3, and they did a partnership with Avengers Endgame. And so they were like, we got to call Juju in on this because, like, he's the movie Marvel guy. Like, he knows things. And I remember a good buddy of mine, his name is Scott. He asked me, he said, it was Scott and his partner Bart. He said, hey, can you tell us a little bit about, like, the universe? Just give us, like, a quick rundown of the Marvel universe. And my face said, you better buckle the fuck up because we're gonna get into it. So behind our desk we had like these like clear like boards, and like whenever, you know, in a creative space, it was like one of those like Google type of places we just write things down on the board. I said, all right, I took multiple markers, multiple colors, in the colors of the Infinity Stones, mind you, and I wrote down every film, every timeline, every character, every stone, and I said, like, here's the main thing. This is like before Black Panther came out too, so I brought in theories. I said, all right, purple is the Power Stone. When you think power, think Guardians of the Galaxy, think Thanos, purple guy. Okay, we locked that in. And like literally it became, you ever see that meme of Charlie Day of like he's like It was literally that, but with like Marvel things on the whiteboard. And I literally, by the end of this lecture, it was like 12 people just sitting there like, whoa, like, look at this guy go. And they kept that up for the rest of the year. Like, and we would reference this board when we were making this ad. And they were just kind of like, well, holy shit, like, this guy, you know, put this together. So that was fun.
It's a total rabbit trail. That, like, the way you described that excitement for that phase in time in Marvel.
Oh, that was a time.
That was so fun. And that's where people tell me, like, Marvel's just as good as it ever was. And, like, hey, there are absolutely fun, exciting, great things still. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there was something so special about that lead up to Infinity War and Endgame that there is nowhere close to that right now. And I want to get back to it.
Yeah, I feel like we are on the way. Like, you know, we'll talk about this in a second, but the Fantastic Four trailer just dropped. And I described 2025 as the year that's a gut check year for Marvel Studios, right? Because I think what was so exciting about that time is that if you take it back to phase one was clearly leading to something, right? It was leading to the formation of the Avengers. We didn't know this until that post-credit scene in Iron Man. And then, in all honesty, like, those phase one films were still pretty rough. Like, Iron Man 2 to me is still pretty rough. Thor is definitely rough. First Avenger, I think, is like very like worthwhile of a watch. But they're just kind of like pretty good films, right? With the exception of Iron Man and the Avengers in that like phase. But we were waiting for the Avengers because we have never seen an event like that in cinema, period.
And if you weren't there at the time, if you're young enough, if you were born in the year 2000 and you can't appreciate growing up without that and realizing everything's a team-up movie now, and that was the first one.
Yes.
And like Iron Man, it's so difficult to remember, was like a B- level Marvel character.
Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, all those guys, like B, even C level characters.
These are not the A-list, and they made them the A-list. And some of that, and like took actors that were not A-listers, like Robert Downey Jr. of course had like shipwrecked his career.
Chris Evans had like teen comedies and whatnot, not another teen movie,
but
Perfect Day, shit like that.
Yeah, but was not who he is now.
Yes.
And
Chris Hemsworth was a nobody.
Yeah, he was the
nobody.
star of the first 10 minutes of Star Trek 2009.
Yeah.
And their big star was Edward Norton.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
we know how that lasted. So.
And my wife had no idea who Iron Man was. She's like, that looks like a pretty cool movie.
Yeah.
And then it was.
Yeah, it actually.
And you watched it was like, I mean, that was as good as I think it was.
You literally walk out like, okay, that was pretty rad.
Yeah,
you know?
what just happened? Because something happened in that moment. And then you get to Avengers and like everyone would go see it over and over again. And you know, it seems very quaint now if you compare it to what came afterwards. But it was such a we've never done this before, and it made everyone excited.
Exactly.
People that did not know who the Avengers were suddenly loved the Avengers.
And if you look at the construction of that movie, a lot of that movie is just dialogue and character interactions. That's what Joss Whedon kind of built a lot of his career off of, was character relationships, characterization, and just seeing these characters in a room interact. And that's a large chunk of the movie. Yeah, there's pretty great action, nowhere near what we see in the MCU today, but it was just really cool to see Tony Stark and Steve Rogers just debate which would be the nuggets for Civil War further down the line, and seeing things like Thor and Hulk, Hulk punching Thor after that awesome tracking shot scene.
And it shouldn't work because it's it's a corny joke.
Yeah.
It's a very corny, low, but it works so well. It's perfect.
And something that I need to point out is that the Avengers were their most colorful
in
that movie.
Right.
All the colors now have been since muted, a little cooler, but they were literally the Super Friends, but on screen.
The Captain America suit, it's so blue.
It's so blue. It's so goddamn blue. And Iron Man's is his most red. He's Spider-Man red in that movie. And so then after that's when you can hit the ground running. That's when again, I feel like Phase 2 was still kind of finding its stride, trying to test what characters can we really show. Guardians of the Galaxy turned out to be a really good hit. Ant-Man was okay, we can do anything now. But it was that Phase 3 that was we're heading into something. It took what we were feeling in that Phase 1 leading into Avengers, and it blew it up by 10. And not only did it say, remember how you felt when 6 characters came together? This is 25 characters coming together.
And 20 plot lines and character arcs.
And it all had emotion. It all had pathos. It had one of the greatest endings, and I feel in cinema history, with Infinity War, right? With everyone turning to dust, and a lot of us, if you read comics and if you knew this, you knew it was happening, but it was executed so well. And the fact that you lived with these characters for so long, that was the biggest emotional gut punch of wow, the characters that I've in a way grew up watching, just from my teen to adult life, I just saw them get clapped by this giant purple dude who is also the secret protagonist of the movie. It was a mind-blowing thing. And then Avengers Endgame was this 3-hour, I call it a movie that was 3 movies in one. It was a drama at first, and then it became a time travel heist movie. Then it just became this action war movie with your favorite heroes, and all of it worked so well. Now Phase 4 and 5, you could tell that there was a direction with the whole multiverse saga. I don't know where it was headed. I know Kang was at the end of it. I don't know what the end game for that was, but you could just tell they were just kind of testing things, setting things up, and it just felt like a lot of setup. And you set things up too long, people start to lose interest, and it just didn't feel like it was going anywhere. And I still feel in many ways, we don't know if it's going anywhere. Fantastic Four, Captain America, and hopefully X-Men. We'll see if we have a clear direction. I feel once we have a clear direction, people will have something to look forward to, and once they look forward to something, they can enjoy it again, right? And that's when I feel people will say the MCU is back. So, but
I saw a video, and I think it put it the best together, where it said the big issue with things right now is time. And what they meant by that was both the number of times you see characters, how often you see those characters.
Yes.
And so you go, and 2008, you see Iron Man, and then he shows up a month later in Incredible Hulk, and then the next movie is
Iron Man
Iron Man 2, and then he's in Avengers 2 years
Iron Man
later.
3.
And then you spent so much time with him, and you spent time with him and Captain America setting up an arc there, and then they have the little banter moments that set up, they're trying to pick up the hammer. The reason that Captain America picking up the hammer is so meaningful is that
because we remember that moment.
Like you had a sequence that was not intended to set this up, but it sets it up perfectly.
Yeah.
And because we care about the relationship between the two of them, like the most basic line, I knew it.
Yes.
Like
yes.
you're like just saying it
Big
6
payoff.
years later, you get chills saying is like, what a great line that in the middle of this fight for their life, he's proud of his friend.
Yes.
Like in the moment, the setup scene, he's like nervous and embarrassed because like it has to be just me.
Yeah.
But of course he wants his friend to do it. And it's so good.
Yeah.
And so we buy into all of these different things, all these plot lines, conflicts and everything like that. And that's where I look at Doomsday and Secret Wars and I go, you haven't done all the work. That made those last ones so good.
Exactly.
And like, when was the last time we saw Shang-Chi? Well, it was What If? A month ago.
But
that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
And so
I say that a lot.
We introduce him and then nothing.
Not just that, but it's also like the plot point of like the beacon that are in the rings.
Yeah.
Like, what are they calling out to? It feels like they completely forgot about that, and I'm still waiting for the answer to that. Right? They're just now starting to pay off like the whole Tiamat thing and like making use of like the giant celestial.
Thunderbolt should have closed out Phase 4.
It should.
And so you kind of go take this movie
They've
right
been
now.
setting up Thunderbolts since Falcon in the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, it's like all of the characters in this. There wasn't any. Was there any new setup for it in Phase 5? So you just take it and you go. Whoop,
nope, it's here
all
now.
All these new characters, Eternals, like all just right there.
Fun fact: the earliest character introduced outside of Bucky for Thunderbolts, the earliest character introduced is Ghost. Who was introduced in Ant-Man, in the Wasp, which is like before Thanos even was done with.
Yeah, that was now 7 years ago. Like she was the villain in the movie that most people forgot about because it was sandwiched between these two event films and it wasn't Captain Marvel. So it's like, oh yeah, that one.
Yep.
She's the villain.
And now she's part of the Thunderbolts.
And you go back to that concept of time. Like that's way too long. Nobody cares. And like, we introduced John Walker and it's like you're like
haven't seen him in a while.
I haven't seen him since the second project of this phase and you're like, what?
What's happening?
Why?
Yeah.
Why did you wait so long to do this project that's the obvious follow-up to all of the setup that you did then? And so you don't have that thing pulling it together. And the big question, who are the Avengers?
Can I ask you a quick question?
Okay.
Do you think we'll ever see Harry Styles as Star Fox again?
I'm trying to think, like, where could that go? Where would it go? What's
because
that movie?
Thanos is done. And like, I don't know if the Eternals are coming back.
Right.
I don't know if they're coming back. And that's the only way. Because like they set it up as if he's coming back with the Eternals.
Right.
Because his last line is, let's go help your friends.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, who's friends? Who is who? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, and I'm old enough that, I know who Harry Styles is because I was working with teenagers when in the One Direction. And of course, his movies now, but like not of the age to where he was that impactful for formative years. I mean, so I'm in the theater, and when he shows up on screen, every girl in the room
just going nuts, going nuts
for that. And when are they going to follow that up? Is he just going to be like character number 28 on the roster
at
for
this
Secret
point,
Wars?
At this point, he's Howard the Duck showing up to the Avengers Endgame war in the background. At this point, like, because and again, I feel like, and this is like the difference between casting and then kind of like cameo stunt casting, right? Yeah. And I feel like they muddied the waters with that one because it's Harry Styles. He's in the movie because, he was in things like Dunkirk, and he just had the Olivia Wilde movie, Don't Worry, Darling. So he's like, in movies, but like he was also pretty big because he had that huge album that came out, Watermelon Sugar, and that one thing, it just as it was. And they were just kind of like, hey, Harry Styles, he's big, right? And like that would have been cool if he was just a cameo and he's out. But you set him up as like a major player in this universe now that you kind of have to pay that off in some way. And I don't feel like they're going to do it.
Even like that, the lack of vision, like strange casting stuff. I mean, the gigantic, obvious one, Blade. That they announced that in 2019, and like, all right, most anticipated Marvel project. I can't wait. Like, what do we get? Like, we got an Oscar winner. Like, yes, we're taking this seriously. And then 6 years pass. Are we taking this? Like, what just happened here? And you know, he shows up in the Eternals, like doing a voice cameo.
The voice, that's all he got.
And like when I started doing the math on it, went Wesley Snipes, who's actual martial artist, like known for just like he stopped,
looks good too.
Stopped playing Blade when he was 43 until obviously coming back, but like his main run ended at 43.
Yeah.
Herschel is already in his 50s. And you go, can you start playing a vampire in your 50s? And you go, how did you guys like Blade seems like one of the ones that's easier to make a story out of it. Like I
the fact that it took this much and that there's so much going wrong with Blade, it's like, first off, I don't condone just like copying and pasting or even just kind of like I condone doing influences.
Yeah.
You already have a blueprint of this works. You have two of them. You have Blade 1, you have Blade 2. At the very least, you consult Guillermo del Toro on one of those things. You bring in Gareth, hey man, we're struggling doing this vampire Marvel movie. But you know what I think it is, man? It's like I feel like Blade, that's gonna be a hard R-rated like MCU movie. And I know there are gonna be some people saying like, oh well, Deadpool and Wolverine, this and this and that. That was a fun R-rated MCU movie. Like it still fits.
Yeah.
You know, you just get a little bit more blood and a little bit more swearing and like, hey, just tell your kids not to watch it until they're 17 and you're good to go.
My son has been desperately trying to get to see Deadpool and Wolverine.
And you gotta be like, listen, I have a 7-year-old daughter and like she sees colorful superheroes on the posters, like the place that we live in LA, you see a lot of superhero posters. There is a Disney owned billboard right outside our house, so we've looked at Deadpool and Wolverine staring at us on the way to school every single day. And you know how kids try to do the reverse psychology. She's always just kind of like, ew, Deadpool and Wolverine, I don't want to see that. Like, and I'm just kind of like, I know you want to see it, like I get it, but you got to stand pat on it. But again, like, even though kids can't watch it, it still feels like something that like fits within the MCU. Blade, you got to go hard. You got to go hard with Blade. We're talking like people are getting ripped open. We're talking like Wesley Snipes level. Motherfucker. Some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill. Those are lines I want to see. And like, I feel like, and I because I read my comment section and I don't want to be affiliated with these people, but I don't want the Disneyfication of like of a Blade. I don't want Blade to be softened. I want him to be as hard as he can be. And I feel like Marvel is struggling because they know it has to be that, but they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, play by the rules of the mouse. And that's where the big struggle is coming in. Again, I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know these things. It's just, we know what Blade is supposed to be. And, you know, we've been burned by like things that were in the MCU that were like, oh, it's more gritty, more mature. Moon Knight was supposed to be that. Daredevil was supposed to be that. Hawkeye was supposed to be that, but they weren't. So I really hope that if it ever gets off the ground, because now Mahershala is in Jurassic World now, which, you know, I think that will be a perfect transition into talking about the next thing that like was like big news, because like you have Fantastic Four MCU. A new trailer for Jurassic World Rebirth just came out, and it's the first movie in the Jurassic World franchise. I've been very iffy on the Jurassic World movies. Like, I find them to be like really fun, very like, you know, monster eat 'em up flicks. You know, Chris Pratt is an action star, but now they got a bona fide action superstar, which I don't think we give enough credit to Scarlett Johansson being a superstar, very similar to like Tom Cruise, Robert Downey Jr., all these people. But it's her, Dan Stevens, who's having himself a really big year between this and then Wicked for Good, which I think his role is going to be even bigger in that. And then Mahershala Ali, you know, who should be Blade by now. This should have been his big year. But
so even when you play that out of, you know, since he announced his Blade, they wrote 1,000 drafts, hired 1,000 directors, and then they just went, all right, we're going to write and direct and make a whole new Jurassic World movie between scripts drafts. So like,
before even like the trailer.
Yeah, like trailer. Like, we can't even figure out who's directing the movie, and he does a whole Jurassic World movie.
My
like,
gosh.
What are you doing?
And that's got to be funny for him, where he's like, dude, if he does a second movie in between this time, like, I feel like we should be studying this type of like development
Yeah.
Because like it's one thing to be in development hell when you're just a standalone movie and then it just like ends up on the cutting room floor and then like things just happen. This is like a movie that's a component in a giant puzzle piece.
Yeah.
So it almost feels like this story can't move forward without this thing coming up. And I don't know what the movement is. It still feels like we're at 20% capacity, I suppose. And Mahershala is the entire 20. So we got a trailer for you to watch. This is the first time Sean has watched the trailer for Jurassic World Rebirth.
Dr. Henry Loomis, this is Zora Bennett, our mission specialist.
Sorry, what mission?
This would be a medical breakthrough that could save countless lives. It comes from the largest dinosaurs on the planet.
Oh my God.
Fortunately for us, all these species exist in one isolated place.
How convenient.
Can you be ready tomorrow?
I can guarantee your safety. I mean, more or less.
More or less?
This reminds me more of like Jurassic Park 3.
He's your guy.
There's our
We're
boy.
the best at moving things and people in and out of places they shouldn't be.
Move up towards Barbados, avoid government patrol, but there aren't that many anymore.
Why's that?
No one's dumb enough to go where we're going.
This island was the research facility for the original Jurassic Park.
We need DNA from the 3 biggest dinosaurs. Do we have to get a sample from an egg? I suppose we could try and get it from the parent, but they're a flying carnivore the size of an F-16.
Maybe we should make it quick.
He's so fun.
These dinosaurs were too dangerous for the original park.
Please don't say they're raptors. They're raptors.
The worst of the worst were left here.
Come on! Duncan!
We put ourselves in a place we don't belong. Survival is a long shot.
What the hell are those?
They're helping the mosasaur defend territory, stalk, hunt.
None of what you just said is good.
There goes that John Williams. All right. What you think, man?
So, I'm perfect age for when the first Jurassic Park movie comes out. I was in middle school, and so, I mean, everyone was the perfect age when that movie. If you could see it in the theater,
anybody
works
who
for
loves
anybody.
dinosaurs,
But have childhood-like wonder, a dinosaur movie, and all the breakthroughs, so that is another one of those foundational.
Right.
Everyone my age that's one of our top 10 favorite movies.
Yes.
As it should be. And nothing's really kind of lived up to it, I think, ever since.
Which is fair. You know, it's hard to strike lightning in a bottle twice like
You're
that.
talking about the best director of all time, arguably, I would say that. But
Yeah.
everyone puts him in that category. In the peak of his career, adapting the best book from a prolific, highly celebrated writer, and working with I would argue the best composer of all time in John Williams.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, of course, you get the perfect thing. But they're trying to figure out how do you continue to capture the wonder as well as the horror and the action.
I think that's the big one, the wonder and the horror at the same time.
And so Jurassic World feels like a bit of a fun rehash. Like we're do 21st century, just amp everything up.
Yeah.
And it works as that blockbuster roller coaster. It's too dumb.
Yeah.
It strips away all the smarts of the original. There's none of the intelligence.
You
but
created a dinosaur whose specific diet was you.
Yeah.
And thought, this will be fun to put in front of the kids.
Yeah. Well, but I had a lot of fun with the first one, and then the other two, I like just as dinosaur movies. There's fun to be had, but they even from their huge diminishing returns.
Yeah,
I watched this trailer, makes me very hopeful.
Okay.
It was a quippier than I would like.
Yeah.
Like we got to pause every 20 seconds to go say a line.
Give you a little laugh track.
But what it felt like is you found another fun dinosaur adventure and a potential way to kind of maybe get some of the wonder of, here's this thing over here that's been running wild. It's not the domesticated dinosaurs that, of course, aren't domesticated. It's the ones making their own thing that we were afraid of. So we just left them alone, and we're going to go explore there in this wild place. You mentioned Jurassic Park 3. It absolutely has that flavor of people going there.
Going to an island, get some mercenaries together. Like, we're here to get something and get out. Like, it has that.
But
no talking raptors, though.
Unfortunately. That we've seen. I didn't want to spoil the best shot.
They might be in the movie. Let's have hope.
This feels like a better excuse. It doesn't feel like we're going to do mercenaries, but they're not mercenaries, which they did in the last one. Is like they're mercenaries. I mean, but not really.
But not really.
So like, what,
they're just here to protect science.
What are you doing? So it seems like there's a lot of potential there. It's the guy that wrote the script for the original one.
Yeah.
Now, adapting a script is not the same thing as coming up with an original story, but he does have a long career in Hollywood. He has plenty of misses in there too.
Yeah,
he's not. You're
not always gonna hit.
But going back to someone that crafted the vibe of the one that I love, very good sign.
Yeah,
and then our director, he knows how to deliver great visuals, both in terms of VFX.
He's a master of scale right now. I feel like when it comes to, I think him and Christopher Nolan are two of the best in the game when it comes to, and I'll also put in Chloe Zhao as well, are the best at delivering visuals with scale that I've ever seen in film.
And that's one of the things that's been missing from the Jurassic World movies.
Yes. It goes back to the wonder you were talking about.
That it's like, let's treat dinosaurs like they're common. And there wasn't the ability to make a dinosaur seem like, this is incredible. Like, I can still, 32 years later, rewatch the first scene when they see the dinosaur. And it's just one of the best scenes because it captures the sense of wonder.
Yes.
And so much of it is that the ability to show scale and be able to like have characters experience what as the audience want to experience, and it has that sense of wonder in it. And you get a director that's like, there's criticisms of his Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
But there's also like
no denying.
Whoa.
Godzilla's like he does a great job at showing Godzilla as a otherworldly force walking amongst people who think they're the shit in the universe. And then people confronting the fact that, oh shit, like this is a god, right? And I feel like that has always been an essential thing about the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies. Should be where you have these people who are scientists who think they have everything figured out. If not, they're trying to figure everything out, and they're confronted with something that we haven't seen in 65 million years, and it's such a wonder and like such a gut punch to them to be like, wow, like Jeff Goldblum was right. We shouldn't fuck with this, right? And to have this movie and Gareth Edwards, hopefully he can I have no doubt that he will be able to do that within the film, but I want to see that in the characters, like them recognizing like we're in a world where this isn't our own anymore. And I feel like Steven Spielberg, I can't remember who said this. I want to say it was Dan Murrow, but he's a master at creating wonder in all of his films. And that's the one thing that I didn't really dig with the previous Jurassic World movies, where I never felt a sense of wonder.
None.
I just it felt like exactly what Jeff Goldblum was talking about with that awesome monologue that he gave when he said, before you even knew what you had, you packaged it, you slapped a little sticker on it, put it on the lunchbox, and you just putting it out to the masses. And that's Jurassic World. Those were the Jurassic World movies, right?
Well, and you think it's even built into the plot that dinosaurs aren't that exciting.
Yes.
It's literally the plot of the movie. I mean, like dinosaurs, I guess they're cool, but let's cook up a better one. Because a
scarier one.
And you immediately go, there's no shortage of monster movies out there. You just said, let's make a monster. Like, that's not as interesting.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs, the things that were on our planet. Like, that's so interesting.
I have a huge, when it comes to creatures, I have a huge thing when it comes to existentialism. Like whales freak me out because they live on our planet and they are things that are just like these gigantic living things. Like I think the size of their brain is like the size of a car or some shit, right? They like basically I have a rule. I don't fuck with anything that can eat me by accident. Right.
That's wise. That's a good. I'm going to write that one down and teach it to my kids.
I have it tatted on my arm. But so,
I've been looking for something to get on my lower back.
There you go. You don't have to charge me for it. Just like put a little like JU on it for Juju, like the little copyright. But like things like that, things like the universe, like what could be out there, like things that lived on this planet that were ginormous, like the megalodon, you know, a giant sloth creature that was 10 times bigger than a bear, like shit like that terrifies me, but it also fascinates me because I'm like, how could something like that exist, right? Because, you know, I live in Los Angeles, like we don't even see deer around here. You know what I'm saying? Like I see a deer and I'm like, whoa, like these are real. And so
that's where like in Texas, like they'll just walk in your backyard if you don't have a fence. So like at my in-laws, we'll just be at their pool and there'll be just deer walking around in their backyard. And you go other places, it's like, everything
stops. Yeah. Everything stops. I'm like, deer, whoa. And so
like driving my daughter to like preschool, we would drive by several fields of cows. So you just see like cows. You see them everywhere. And if you don't see that normally, it's like there's a bunch of cows over there.
I remember seeing. I don't want to get too much into like the animal thing. But my grandmother. This is no longer a movie account. We're just talking about animals that fascinate us.
What animals have you seen?
Well, let me tell you. But like my grandmother used to like have us go from like Los Angeles to Fresno a lot, and then for 1 year I did live in Fresno. But on the way up, there would be like fields and fields and fields, and you can see these fields also like driving up to San Francisco if you don't take the coast. And I remember just being in like that back seat, just like on the window, looking at cows. Because I'm like, whoa, those are cows, right? Yeah. It's like we don't see cows a lot. They're just things that you hear we drink the milk and cheese from. So, you know, but
and back to other places, they'll just have these animals that are they're just on the side of the road. Cows are just on the side of the road.
Oh my God. And I can't fathom that. With Jurassic World, I really hope that this movie, you know, with every Jurassic World movie, it's always like the promise that we're bringing something back that you missed from the original. And I feel like that's with a lot of legacy sequels and things like that. But with Jurassic World, I feel like I like the other movies for what they are. They're not the original Jurassic Park. They're not going to be they're not going to be on my top 10 list for best movies of the year, but I will still have fun with them. I really hope that this movie not only delivers like what I miss about Jurassic Park, but given that Gareth Edwards like flair, those visuals, like I want to be wowed by dinosaurs again. Right. And I feel like, you know, the world still loves dinosaurs. Like I think each one made $1 billion anyway.
Right.
You know, so like I don't think they're going to be hurting for it. I think I'm still going to have a lot of fun with it. And I'm also like kind of coming to terms with like just making movies just to entertain, you know, not they don't always have to be like this life-changing event like the original one was. But Rebirth, hopefully the franchise gets rebirth.
Well, even as you're kind of saying some of that and thinking about this trailer in terms of the last movie we got, which seems like that film completely like missed the mark. Of just you released dinosaurs across the earth. That was the
that was a great ending, and that's like Dominion.
We are now in the Jurassic world. So what are we going to do? We're going to do the epic Avengers level Jurassic movie. We're going to bring back the original people. You know what we've wanted to see Alan Grant doing? What if he did corporate espionage and evil Apple in Europe? And you immediately go, what? And the plot of the movie is that evil Steve Jobs is sending locusts out to kill cornfields. And you say it and you go, how did that get past a brainstorming session? How did no one in the room go, nobody wants Jurassic World to be that movie? And did you see the short film that they made between films?
No.
Like Battle of Big Rock or something like this?
No, I did not.
It's about 10 minutes long. Colin Trevorrow did it. Like it's him.
Okay.
And it's like a family is out camping in their RV and they're attacked by a dinosaur. And so it's just like a family and it's nighttime and they're just trying to survive. And you went, is that what the movie's going to be?
Yeah.
And that
sounds
cool.
way better than what we got.
It's like people doing normal life, and all of a sudden this gigantic thing can topple over your RV. Is 10 minutes long, and it's just like a cool scene, classic Jurassic sequence. Yeah. And then they want to put us over in a preserve way over there. It's like you literally took it from the concept that was so exciting, the thing that's what was exciting, and then you put it back on a preserve. And even worse, you took one of behind Indiana Jones, the second best outdoorsy adventurer of all time, and you put him indoors.
I never heard no one describe this movie and the assassination of the great Alan Grant in this way, and now I can never watch it the same way again.
And you think it's kind of fun to give him the romance, and I don't hate that. I don't fully love it. I don't hate it though. But you turn him into he has a puppy dog high school crush on the girl from the first movie, and it's nice to see, and you're of all the things you could do with Alan Grant, me and you, let's take that movie off the table. Okay. We sat down, we got a whiteboard, and we're going to brainstorm. We're doing Jurassic World. We're going to bring back Alan Grant. And you try and think, what would we write down? You know what would never even make the list? Every single thing they did with the character.
Put him indoors, give him the crush, all these things.
Yeah,
wow. Honestly, seeing Alan Grant back was I guess enough for me, but I did have this sense of just...
It actually was for me, too.
You're right. Just seeing him back, though, what he was doing, I was okay. Every time he came in a scene and the scene ended, it's good to have you back, Alan. Yeah. It's great to have you back, Alan.
I rewatched the first half of it not too long ago.
I haven't watched it since it came out.
I don't remember, my wife, she just... Monster features, she'll just throw them on.
Yeah.
So that was on, and... there's a bunch of things in it that either give me the feels or there's an idea there that you go, that's the better movie.
Yeah.
And you have Chris Pratt, out wrangling loose dinosaurs, and you go, yeah.
That's good shit.
And why did we introduce human cloning, and he's raising a little girl? This is a weird plot line, but at least it there's some sense to it. And then was it Blues Baby gets
Blues Baby,
and you kind of think for a second if we're gonna be in a franchise where we had Chris Pratt on a motorcycle riding with velociraptors, why not have him go on a revenge mission with his velociraptor? Let's do Taken.
Yes, with the velociraptor. They've already had some whole scenes where he's riding a motorcycle in what do you want to call dark market backstreets where they're doing illegal dinosaur fights like they're dogs, and he's riding through these things. I'm this is already kind of Taken already.
Right, yeah,
might as well just go full on.
And let's do Taken with the dinosaur, and let him and Blue go in and I'm gonna get your baby back.
I'm gonna get your baby back, Blue. Listen,
nobody takes Blue's baby.
They really missed the mark on just doing anything with the Blues Baby alliteration. They should have done something with that.
It's just you said something, but you go, oh, that's stupid. This is a stupid idea, but a really fun. I accept it in this context, and instead, locusts in corporate espionage. What?
Locusts in corporate espionage. I want that on a t-shirt. I want to put that on the back of this shirt, as a matter of fact.
But the goofy guy from one of the scenes with the wearing the hat,
goofy guy.
The kids of the main
I keep
villain.
thinking
Dotson.
Okay.
Dotson.
Dotson. Oh my God.
Dotson. We got Dotson. Let's bring him back, and now he's evil Steve Jobs. What? These are you literally. Were you trolling us? Did you intentionally come up with the worst possible ideas?
I think a little bit. Well, here's my thing, man. And before we this is what I'm gonna say while we close this Jurassic World loop, is that I'm a big believer whenever I'm watching a movie or whenever I'm watching a franchise, is that you either know when to not go too far, right? Or if you go too far, you gotta go far. You gotta go full tilt, right? And I feel like Jurassic World, and I've learned to accept this, went too far, and I really want them to just I'm gonna pitch you this. I want them to combine with another franchise that are an expert of going too far. Do you know what I'm thinking of? We'll say it on 3 if you know what I'm thinking of. 1, 2, 3. Fast and Furious. Yes. So with that being said,
As long as we're going down this path.
you see, we're right here. We know what we're talking
Yes.
about. So with that being said, here's my pitch.
Okay.
For Jurassic and Furious. So we have, it opens with Dom Toretto and his familia at home doing a cookout. Kurt Russell shows up and he's like, Dom, I need your team to go to Costa Rica to get an asset off this island. Dom says, yes, let me get the team together. I'm gonna get my family together.
Let me finish my Corona.
Let me finish my Corolla and I'm out. Right? I said Corona. Sorry, Corona. You're never gonna sponsor me now. But so they do what they do in with Fast and Furious 6. They airdrop their cars via parachute and helicopter onto this island. Letty goes on her motorcycle. She scouts in the front of the jungle to find any wrongdoings, right? So as they're driving, Tez and Roman are arguing like they always do. But Dom, he's starting to see that this place looks very familiar. It looks very familiar. Out of nowhere, Letty's comms go off. They just static. So they're looking for Letty as they're driving their cars in this seemingly abandoned jungle. Yeah. Out of nowhere, Roman starts yapping, as he often does, because he starts to hear a sound. For some reason, he's drinking and driving, and there's cognac in his cup holder.
Gotcha.
And just like the classic scene in the first one, we hear a stomp, and we see the cognac ripple in the car, right? Roman says, hey, yo, Dom, what's going on here, man? You know, Tyrese is great at delivering this. He can do it. And then Dom says, I always knew that this place really existed. But obviously a poor man from Los Angeles can never afford to go. Out of nowhere, they hear a growl. And holy shit, a T-Rex pops out of the bushes to attack the cars in the Familia. Yeah. It is a fucking T-Rex race against these F1s and these fucking like Chargers and fucking Dom's car and shit. And it turns out that Kurt Russell accidentally struck a deal with, was it InGen? Is it InGen?
Yes, InGen.
He struck a deal with InGen to get DNA samples from a dinosaur because they want to make their own dinosaurs to fight in the field.
Gotcha.
And Luke Evans and Jason Statham is a part of it somehow. I don't know how, but they're a part of it. So while they're there, like shenanigans happen in the movie, and Dom bonds with a T-Rex.
Of course.
Right?
I mean, of course.
The T-Rex steps on his Charger. The Charger is done. It goes the way of Paul Walker in the movie. He's gone. And Dom decides to trade in this Charger for a T-Rex.
Gotcha.
So instead of driving cars now, Dom drives a T-Rex. He defeats InGen. He takes the T-Rex back home where he lives in the backyard, and he throws him hot dogs during the barbecue. And Corolla, he feeds him the T-Rex Coronas. And they sit down and say grace. And he says, I don't have friends. I got dinosaurs and family. And the T-Rex, you want to know the best part? The T-Rex's name is Dom Toretto.
It's all building up to that. It's all.
As a matter of fact, when the dinosaurs roar, instead of hearing the roar, you hear Charlie Puth's voice come out of the T-Rex. And that is Jurassic and Furious, my friend. The crossover that we have all been waiting for. There it is.
Wow. I just don't understand why you're not running these studios.
It's better than Locust.
Right. It's like, once again, if we're going to go with stupid ideas with Jurassic movies, would you rather have locusts and evil apple or that?
You know my answer.
Right. Like
you know my answer.
One of these is epic, and one of them is Alan Grant running through hallways. Do I want Dominic Toretto to like do cheers with a T-Rex with his little T-Rex?
With the little T-Rex?
Holding a Corona. Okay. Or Alan Grant with a puppy dog crush.
I think I know the answer to that. I think our audience knows the answer to that. So please, guys, if you're watching or listening, leave a comment. Start a petition. Jurassic and Furious, this needs to happen, okay? Universal, We're here. All right. That closes the loop on Jurassic Park and World.
It was such a thorough pitch, too.
I've been thinking about this for a long time. A long time. And plus, Universal can just put the rides together. You go to Universal Studios, just combine them. Easy. Or at the very least, just put like a Dom on animatronic in the Jurassic World like ride. I think we're good to go. Okay.
Wow.
Whew. Okay. So to end this episode, I used to do this thing on my TikTok that a lot of people loved, and I used to like the duet feature, and I like to call it Movie Soulmate Challenge.
Okay.
And it's similar to like what we did just now, like count down to 3, we name a movie.
Okay. We're batting 1,000 right now. Okay, see if we can keep it up.
So this is going to be like you have a 50-50 of getting it right as me. The object is I'm gonna name like a category, like, you know, best movie here, best actor here for this. I'm gonna give you 2 actors, and I'm gonna give you a second to think about it. I'm gonna count to 3, and then we're gonna say our answers at the same time. Okay.
My pick on this.
Your pick on this.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So, Movie Soulmate Challenge with Sean. Let's do it. Best everyman actor: Paul Rudd or Jason Segel? Give you a moment to think about it.
Okay, I got my answers.
All right, I got my answer. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Jason Segel. See, I did that on purpose because I love you, man.
Yeah.
And I feel like those are like I feel like they're the best.
So it's maybe it's just the simple recency bias of Paul Rudd has had a better, more thorough, or done a lot more the last 10
I think
years. Now,
so.
Segel's coming back with television stuff, but
and that's
he
why
disappeared for a little bit.
He did, and like that's why like I thought that would be a good one because I love Jason Segel. I also just recently watched How I Met Your Mother, and I was like, "Fuck, this guy's great. Shrinking's great." Yeah. Plus, we talked about the Muppet movie.
Yeah,
like,
he did that Muppet movie.
Muppet movie was incredible, right? And so like, and also Forgetting Sarah Marshall is one of my favorite like romantic comedies ever. Plus, Paul Rudd's also in that movie too as like a surf instructor. So I feel like those 2 guys, I think it's like a great one. But we can't get them all right. I was hoping we could, but we still have a chance. Okay. All right. Best Quentin Tarantino movie. I consulted Craig about this one because this one can be really hard. Inglourious Bastards or Pulp Fiction? Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Inglourious Bastards. Oh my God! And you said the same thing. You said the same thing.
I said the same thing.
He said
I wonder why you said it though. I'm curious.
I think some of it's a more formative film for me.
Yes.
That, you know, like I remember when it came out, my mom being like, John Travolta's dancing again. and then it's this movie that like never seen anything like it, that was told out of order. And so it's just like, it's the movie that just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And so that like, that's the one that I tied to like quintessential Tarantino for me.
That's fair. I feel like Inglourious Bastards. Now, Pulp Fiction was my favorite film ever for a long time until Her was released, and Her like took that spot. And I still think if you want to say what my favorite film is, Pulp Fiction is my favorite of the 2. I think Inglourious Bastards is Quentin Tarantino firing on all the cylinders that he's learned since Pulp Fiction, right? Like the nonlinear storytelling, the dialogue, the like the character work, like the moments. Like I feel like
the scope,
the scale,
the audacity.
I feel like it's his like magnum opus of like a movie of like this is peak Quentin Tarantino. Where it's like Pulp Fiction, he came out as like a peak Quentin Tarantino, but then he just kind of added. It's like when you think about Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Like we know that Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time. But Kobe Bryant, like, arguably from, like, being a product of, like, being a younger player, like, who learned more in the time that he was in. And, like, obviously players are more skilled now.
Right.
He adds to what Michael Jordan did, but Michael Jordan is still the best, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I absolutely understand what you're saying.
Okay. So this one is a good one. And I feel like this will rip a lot of people's shit open. And I think this is going to go with age, too. Best non-Disney animated film. Okay. How to Train Your Dragon or Iron Giant? This may get a little personal.
Okay.
1. You got it?
You got
it? Okay. It looked like you were still thinking for a second, and I wouldn't blame you. 3, 2, 1. Iron Giant.
How to Train Your Dragon.
Listen. I don't think we're gonna be movie soulmates, but
but it seemed like we went into it really confident, like we're gonna pull this off.
But I love this though. Yes. I love this because like I think How to Train Your Dragon is one of the greatest films of all time. Like I really, really do. Like I still think of the test drive scene. I still play the music from John Powell all the time.
Incredible score.
And they're bringing him back for the live action as well. But there's something about, and I said this is very personal. Like, this is a very personal thing. And if this was against any other animated film, I probably would have said, if it's not Your Name, I probably would have said How to Train Your Dragon. But Iron Giant is, I just feel, I've been writing for it ever since I saw it. It flopped at the box office. Not a lot of people have seen it. It is the crown jewel that got lost in the Disney Renaissance. And I feel like that's why a lot of people haven't seen it. Like, if it wasn't Disney, then why should we see it? But Iron Giant is such a great fucking movie.
You know, that movie is the reason Brad Bird did everything he did. Where they went, okay, that guy right there, he's incredible. Let's bring him over.
Oh, the Incredible!
That was entirely an accident.
I was like, that was good. You should have owned that.
I should have. Yeah. That was intentional. But they saw him and they went, that's the guy we need. And then, you know, even did live action. The best sequence I've ever seen in the theater was the Dubai Tower sequence in true IMAX.
Yes.
And, you know, Mission Impossible after the third, like, I like the third one a lot, but the franchise is kind of at the weird phase. And then go see this movie and it's like, this is so good. And then they do that sequence. I was like, that's the most immersive, like, that's incredible. And this path happened because Iron Giant and another Vin Diesel.
Yeah, Vin Diesel. That was that his like first movie ever? No, it was
very early.
Was it very early on? But it was his first voice acting role, and so much emotion, so much pathos in just like few words. Yeah, you know. And then he later brings it on for Groot, and I love that. I got a chance to tell Vin Diesel that like Iron Giant is one of the best animated movies ever, and he was so appreciative. And I was like, I wish you could tell my daughter that. Like, you know, we need to put these kids on.
Yeah, so I think and. Could be a little bit of kind of the came out when I'm like a senior in high school. Yeah, I wasn't watching animated movies when I was a senior in high school. I was discovering.
Plus, animated movies were still trying. If it wasn't Disney, like animated movies were still trying to get the respect of like they're more than.
And this is like
kids films.
You know, DreamWorks is only 2 years old, and so like these other studios, like it was like Disney dominated, and like. They hadn't cut
Pixar wasn't even like in its heyday yet. I think they only had 2 feature films.
Right, like it was so early on, so it was like Disney kind of dominated things, and then How to Train Your Dragon came out like a couple years before my son was born. But then that whole new decade, the movies were coming out, the animated shows came out, and so my kids watched the animated shows. Yeah. So you know that was a little bit one that even kind of ties into the raising my kids, and those things that are the most impactful, that elevate the experience of a movie. And sometimes you casually watch them in the background or whatever, and you don't put much thought into it, and then you sit down and you watch it and you go, there is so much in this, like a moment where a dad goes, I'm sorry, and you go, it's the most simple line. It's not like what brilliant writing, how did you come up with that line? But it feels like a line that's like
targeted because it's human. Exactly, it's human, and like as a father, you hear that and you're just like, "Fuck!" Like, I want that moment, or like I've had that moment, and it just it captures the human experience in a movie about dragons.
Right, and you they do the trailer for the live action one. Going back to what we said something earlier, that you know it just feels like we're doing almost feels like one of these AI generated live action versions of something. Yeah. But that score kicks in, and it transports. You get all the feels and everything.
Transports, man,
because it's just that good of a score. Yeah, the music itself just does all the work.
I got high hopes for those guys, Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlois, because you know they directed that movie, and I got to hang out with Chris Sanders a lot for like the Wild Robot stuff. We were in France, and like
that was my favorite movie of last year.
Dude, Wild Robot, just my God. I always like get nervous whenever I do like promo for a movie because I'm like, I hope I like this movie. Like I hope it's good. And like I've worked promo for movies that weren't so great. I worked promo movies that are great, and I was really happy that Wild Robot genuinely was great. Like it's like the people at Universal were telling me we think this is our best movie that we've ever made. Like we genuinely think this could be it. And coming out of that, I was like, you guys should feel that way because it really brings something new to it. So again, being able to talk to Chris and Dean seems really excited about it. Like he's the first director to do the transition from doing the animated one and work on the live action one as well. So hopefully that translates. We talk about like having hope for stuff like that. And, you know, I hope it's not a shot for shot. He's promised that it's not a shot for shot, but we'll see.
In the nature of a dragon story, that is a good live action. Like doing live action Lion King, you go, talking animals,
and they didn't have like facial expressions.
Yeah, it doesn't translate quite right. Yeah, as opposed to like
humans that are interacting with dragons that like, don't talk. It's, you know,
that like that can just be really cool.
Yeah,
There was actually this obscure cult show from the last decade called Game of Thrones that was the people that saw it, which is only a handful. There's some cool dragon writing in that.
Okay.
So if you,
I'll check it out. I'll check it out for sure. How's the final season? Is the final season good?
Ended great. The best season. Like they finally got the pacing of the storytelling right at the end, and subverted my expectations in such a satisfying manner with who ended up winning the Game of Thrones.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much for that recommendation. I will check it out after this podcast. Game of Thrones. It's gonna be great. All right, we got 2 more.
Okay,
that's
right.
We could wrap this up.
I really do talk.
No, we can talk forever. I love this. Okay. We just had some fun with this.
That's right. You're gonna say something, and I have to pick. Okay.
There you go. Best billion-dollar franchise. Okay. Transformers. Or, sorry, I like mixing things up. Transformers or Fast and Furious. I wrote Fantastic Four for some reason. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like we're going to be different on this again, and I'm nervous. 1, 2, 3. Fast and Furious.
Yes!
We got one. We got one. Yes! That's yours too. We got one. Dude, honestly, like, Fast and Furious, like, it's such a wild journey because you had Point Break with cars.
Yes. It's overtly, it was like, okay, whatever.
And then, like, I call this a hood classic because Too Fast, Too Furious, I grew up in Compton. Mm-hmm. We watched Too Fast and Furious in the hood every single day because they had Tyrese Gibson, they had fucking Ludacris, and then that fucking song, Act a Fool. Like, that was made for the hood. I'm sorry. Like, everybody else just jumped in late. I like to think that.
That was for the culture.
It was for the culture. It was for the culture. Yes. John Singleton directed that one too.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, let's go.
I went and saw that one in the theater with my mom. I like there's things that you don't like remember. Like, why do I remember 23 years later seeing Too Fast, Too Furious? But like, for whatever reason, I remember going to go see that movie with my mom and be like, that was the dumbest movie I've ever seen. I had a lot of fun with that. I've always been like very fond of that movie, and in its own way, I think teased where things were going.
I think so. Thank you. I say that too. With that, like, that final like car jump onto a boat.
Yeah.
I was like, this franchise has always been kind of crazy and batshit. So then it was like, Tokyo Drift, which at the time I was like, it's just as good as like a straight to DVD thing because like the main cast isn't in it.
Right.
Like, but apparently when you look back on it, it's really fucking like good.
Christopher Nolan has singled it out as like, like people always think I just sit around watching serious movies. I have a blast with like Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift.
Yes.
And he picked that one.
That's
the one that he picked.
I thought he was just naming Fast and Furious movies.
He said Tokyo Drift. It's
okay.
Nolan, man, you are a man of mystery.
It's pretty rad. And like also Fast and Furious, very underrated for like their like music soundtrack choice. Like that, if you live in Tokyo and you have to go. I was blasting that all summer. Hadn't seen the movie at the time, but I was blasting that. Plus, also low-key a hood classic, Lil Bow Wow. But they brought everybody back, and then 5 was when shit just...
Yeah. Whew. One of my
like,
top 5 favorite theater experiences was seeing that movie.
Mm-hmm. So,
and like went to a midnight screening because this is before they started doing the Thursday previews.
Yeah.
Pull in the parking lot. There's muscle cars everywhere.
Love
like,
it.
Vroom, vroom.
Love
Walk in,
it.
and it's the packed theater. It's the theater I still go to for big premieres and big XD screen, stadium seating when it was still a novelty to have stadium seating. And just the theater's just so amped up. Somebody starts running down the stadium seatings and jumps over the rail to like, and it's a 15-foot drop. And you hear everyone in the theater go, whoa! And he didn't go, my legs, but like it seemed like it was fine, but it was just like this bizarre, amped up like cars. There's a guy jumping over the rails.
This was their Avengers.
Yes,
when you think about it, this is their Avengers.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then you watch the movie, and it was like what just happened? Because that wasn't like that was so much better than
it was
the other
Fast and Furious, but like heightened to like 1,000 times.
And this is when like The Rock
came in.
Rock comes in, and this is
I think this is peak Rock, by the way. I think this is like peak Rock.
And he obviously kind of overstayed his welcome the last few years, made some choices that are questionable.
Yeah.
But like him showing up in that movie,
Dwayne, but still
duking it out with Vin Diesel,
the
and
two
you're
bald-headed muscle heads.
It was like
it was an event.
Yes.
You know what? They should have made like a tight Final Card poster with Vin Diesel and The Rock. If they did, I'm sorry, I'm not privy to this, but they should have done that because I can't remember what year that came out, but I remember like I like to tie myself to movies in that way where I go, two bald-headed guys with muscles,
Yeah.
like going at it in a movie. And plus, you just like combine everyone from the previous movies. I thought 6 was really good, and then 7 was when I was like, you guys are just doing anything now. And I remember I want to say it was either in 6 or 7, where I said, we either got to go to space or we have to time travel at some point. And they just said, let's keep up in the ante. And they understood the assignment.
Yep.
And my favorite moment in Fast and Furious history, I want to say this was Fast 7. It has to be whichever one. They had the heat-seeking missile in LA. And,
F8.
Huh? That's 8.
F8.
That was Fate. That wasn't Fate. It was when they fought Jason Statham for the first time. It was 7.
7 is the one because he's avenging his brother.
He's avenging Luke Evans from 6.
And then
I
it's
thought
like
you were talking about The Rock.
Oh yeah, no.
There are multiple missiles.
Yes.
There are multiple missiles.
There are a lot of missiles. Because he does like throw a missile like with his arm. Like you're right.
Yeah,
He just flings the missile at them.
It's like Patrick Mahomes just with the missile.
Fast and Furious, baby. There's a lot of moments, but
seventh one, they did like the battle for LA.
It was the battle for LA, and my favorite moment ever. And this was like a great setup because throughout the entire movie, you got Jason, another bald-headed villain, like going up against Vin Diesel. There's a moment where the multiple moments where they come to blows, they come face to face. Vin Diesel whips out crowbars. Jason Statham whips out a gun. You thought this was gonna be a street fight, and like they're interrupted for whatever reason, and this happens multiple times in the movie. And then the final thing is you have them ram their cars into each other. They get out the cars. Jason pulls out the crowbar and says, "Huh," and Vin Diesel pulls out a Glock and says, "You thought this was gonna be a street fight?" Shoots it in the air, tosses it in the car, pulls out 2 crowbars, like, "You goddamn right it is." And that's not even the best part. The best part, I'm spitting because I'm so excited. The best part is like when he has fucking Jason Statham dead to rights. He's doing like the Mortal Kombat on the ground, like, "Oh, I'm defeated." And the missile hits the parking structure, which they're fighting on top of, and the parking structure is slowly coming apart. And Vin Diesel looks at Jason Statham and says, "You know the thing about a street fight? Basically might as well look at the camera and says, the street always wins." He stomps the ground and the whole structure comes down. And I swear to God, I did not know what else happened in the last 15 minutes of the movie because I was in the theater on the floor crying my eyes out, just laughing like, this is no longer a movie about cars. This is a superhero film. Vin Diesel has powers. I have to rewatch the movie to find out what happened because I was hysterical. That's the best moment in Fast and Furious history. So, anyway, I feel like that's like a great place to like wrap this thing up.
Man, there's a lot of Vin Diesel stories crescendoing in this podcast.
A lot of Vin Diesel, a lot of dinosaurs and Fast and Furious crossover. Like, I feel like we covered a lot of ground today. Yeah. I feel like we did a lot. Well, Sean, thank you so much for like joining me on the podcast. Seriously, where can the people find you at? Plug yourself, bro.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. If you look up Sean Chandler, you either find an NFL player or a guy that looks like me that talks about movies. It's the guy that looks like me talking about movies.
So anybody with a football, we could just...
Yes, yeah. That's a different guy.
Get it out of there. Well, that happened to me one time when I was looking at myself in Getty, and like I saw a photo of Draymond Green and the female college basketball player Juju. I can't remember her last name, but they were together at the ESPN Awards, and I was like, what in the world? They both came together at one place, took a Getty image, and one has the first half of my name and the other has the last half of my name. So when I look up my name in Getty, it was Draymond and Juju together. So I was like, shit, okay, sure. I just thought I looked like Draymond. But as you guys know, I am Juju, aka Straw Hat Goofy, your movie guy, and thank you so much for watching. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube or listening to it on your drive home or to work, wherever you're listening to this podcast at, you leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification so you can never say that you don't know when my videos are coming. It's very important, and I really appreciate you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time when we talk about the next movie.